Buy Black Podcast, Episode 13. 5 steps to help you set and achieve SMART goals for 2018.
Welcome to Buy Black, the only podcast dedicated to helping you find, connect with, and support Black-owned businesses. We're on a mission to bring consumers and business owners together to ignite the global Black economy. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you're a Black business owner or a socially conscious consumer, you've joined the right community. Ready? Let's get to work.
Hey guys, welcome back to Buy Black, your only podcast dedicated to helping you find and connect with Black-owned businesses. Today is going to be another episode. It's going to be me flying solo and just talking to you guys about some of the things that have been on my mind. It is officially October 22nd today. This is Sunday night. Tomorrow morning, I get on a plane and I will be out for the week at a conference down in Georgia for my main job. So I won't have any time this week, any opportunity to do any interviews for the next episode. So likely next Monday, you guys will get another episode from me only. And in all honesty, this is all completely on me. I have got a good 5 or 6 leads of good Black-owned businesses that I need to connect with and invite to be on the show. And to this point, the only reason it hasn't happened is because I prioritized it lower on my list. I've got a lot of stuff going on at work, and I have put it off. That is all on me. That is my fault. But I'm going to get everything back on track for you guys very, very shortly. In the meantime, you're stuck with just me. So this week, what I wanted to talk about, given the time of year that it is, this is a time of year that I am always reminded about setting goals. And I'm reminded about that because this is a time of year where my company actually has us do our annual reviews. We go back and we look at the goals we set for the year. We judge ourselves based on how well we attain those goals. Our managers do the same thing to us. They do 360 reviews. It's all that kind of stuff, right? But then after we do these annual reviews, it's time to start setting our goals for the next year. So this is a time of year that it always comes to me about setting goals. And goal setting is something that's really important to me. And I feel like we as people, it's not even just as Black people or white people or anybody, just as people, as human beings, we have a tendency to not be really good at setting and achieving our goals. We're really good at telling ourselves that we're going to set goals, but we're not really great at following through, right? So a couple of months from now, it'll be New Year's, and at that new year, there will be people making resolutions to do something, to lose weight, to gain muscle mass, to get their finances in order, to do whatever. We always make these New Year's resolutions. You know, at the last day of the year, I resolve that starting tomorrow, even though I haven't put anything in place to make myself successful, I'm going to live this completely different life going forward. It's completely unrealistic. So it's always important to me to understand the process of goal setting and how to set good goals and actually achieve those goals. So that's what today's episode is going to be about. I'm going to talk about my process that I use to set and achieve goals. And throughout my lifetime, I've never really had a problem with achieving goals. Even when I feel like I overload myself with trying to get a lot of stuff done in a short period of time, when I go about the process on the front end of creating goals, giving them timelines, and then actually making out a plan to achieve those goals within the timelines, I tend to do pretty well with it. A great example, last year in 2016, in that one year, I had the goal of achieving a gold level certification with one industry-wide organization, and then earning certification to teach for that organization, finishing my bachelor's degree, getting a certification with another organization, CPLP, that I got. And actually, I think those were the 4 main things, right? 3 certifications and finishing my degree. And all of these things were, it's not just, take a 1-hour test and here you're certified. Like, these were things that people tend to study for a year and a half to do. I mean, finishing a degree is a 4-year thing. And I had 20 credits that I needed to get, and I resolved to get all of that done before the first semester. So to knock out 20 credits worth of work in 1 semester while working a full-time job and the second job and being in the military, it was a lot, right? But I set the goals. I laid out a timeline realistically for how I could achieve those goals. And then I just got to work on them. And lo and behold, at the end of 2016, every single one of the goals that I had set had fallen. So going into this year, going into 2017, around this time, I set some goals for 2017. And the interesting thing about those is that I set these goals not really knowing what it is that I wanted to accomplish, because, I've never been an entrepreneur before. I've never started a project before where I needed to build an audience and a market or anything like that. But when I started my goals in 2017, they were a little bit different from what I'm used to. The first goal I had was, I wanted to build an audience by giving people advice, and when people heard the advice I was giving, they would then, I guess, want to seek my advice further, right? Because I set myself up as a coach, whether it's a personal goal coach or a business coach. That was my view, is that I'm going to take 2017 and I'm going to just produce this content, put it out there, and have people get to know me and get to know my style and get to know kind of how I conduct business, and then start coming to me to help them achieve their goals. Actually, when it all comes down to it, it was about helping other people achieve their goals. So I didn't really know what or how that was going to look. But I told myself that by the end of this year, I would have developed a platform and an audience and put out content that would start drawing people to me as a consultant and as a coach, all with the intent of, by the end of the year, I'm in a position where I can look at everything I've built and start to identify how then over the next year do I grow it into a business. So it's like 1 year to start building an audience, and then 2018 I was going to use to start growing into a business. By 2019, being in a position where I had a solid audience and a business, and I could look and say, okay, how long until I can leave all the other jobs I'm doing and just work for myself? So that was my goal. Very, very difficult for me to kind of visualize how that was going to happen. But I started out with, I was doing Facebook Live videos, right? I was sitting in front of a camera on Facebook and just doing these, what I thought were short, 5 minutes, 8 minutes. Some of them got as long as 12, 15, 18 minutes. But doing these short videos of just kind of my advice of different subjects. I've got like 15 or 20 of those videos I put out over a couple of months. And there were people responding to them on Facebook Live, but the whole time I was thinking, this is too small of a platform. I'm an introverted person. I don't have a lot of Facebook friends. So at the most, the only people who are going to see these videos are going to be people that are already, your Facebook friend. It's kind of a small platform, and it doesn't really have the ability to get bigger. And so it was in doing those videos, I was like, I think these videos have good content, but nobody watches a video for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes where somebody is just talking to the camera, unless that somebody already has a face and a name that people know. It's like, so this medium isn't the medium for me. I'm not the guy who makes a short, quippy video and, it's fun to watch and it's funny and it does all those things, those entertainment things you got to do in video in 90 seconds or less. I just can't do that. And so even as I was doing those videos, I was like, man, I have to find a different platform to do the thing that I said I want to do. And I started listening to some podcasts. And I got this really nice microphone for doing the videos. And I was like, I've got to figure out a way to use this microphone better. And I got to figure out a way to do a podcast, because podcasts are not limited by, your Facebook audience or whatever that is like that. If you can create a podcast with a message or audience or even, a lot of the podcasts that are out there just for entertainment, if you can get that on different platforms and people can find you and they can start connecting with you, right? And then you can use all the other social media. I was like, so I gotta make a podcast. What am I gonna make a podcast about? And that was, it was about 2 months worth of me thinking, how do I switch over from these videos to a podcast? And it was in April. It was in April of this year that I reconnected with a friend of mine, a friend named Amber, on Facebook that, I'd grown up going to church with. I go to her Facebook page and she has all these articles that are highlighting Black-owned businesses on her page. And, nobody's asking her to promote these businesses. It was something that was passionate to her. And so I was like, wow, okay, there's the final piece of the puzzle. I want to do a podcast, and I want to use that podcast in order to connect with people. And I don't want to just sit and talk on the podcast by myself, but I don't know who I would interview and for what purpose. And then seeing what was on her page, I was like, that's it. Black-owned businesses. Are there podcasts out there that are promoting Black-owned businesses? And I look, nope, there's not. Great. Now, how do I connect with them, right? And what is the platform going to look like? And how am I going to build it and market it and everything like that, right? All this stuff came from me starting off the year just saying, by the end of this year, I will have built this platform with this audience, right? And little did I know, that some 4 or 5 months after I even had that idea, that this thing will have evolved to what it is right now, right? I've gone from at the beginning of the year, I was concerned about building up my audience. And then when this idea hit and it became a reality, and I realized just how powerful it can be, these other components start coming in. You start researching and finding out just how difficult it is for Black-owned businesses to get marketing time, to get advertising time, how limiting it is in our Black-owned businesses because of capital in order for them to even spend advertising dollars and get to an audience. So, it developed to me saying, okay, well, it doesn't cost me very much to maintain this platform. I've got like 3 jobs. So I've got the capital intrinsically to be able to support the minimal cost that it is to build this podcast and put it out there. So I can just create a platform that gives Black business owners free access to an audience. And that's going to benefit the consumers. That's going to benefit the business owners. And I'm just sitting here in the middle and building the audience. So that's how this thing developed. Now here we are. It's October. We're almost at the end of we're almost at the end of the year. So we got 2 more months to December. And even though the way that I've gone to achieve the goal doesn't look the same as what I started, because I knew that the core bottom point of what I was trying to do was to create a platform that would draw an audience together. Everything that I've done over the course of this year has led towards me accomplishing that goal. And I think it's extremely important that we learn as people, as a community, how to do that, how to look at the world around us and identify what goals we want to accomplish, and then set about the process of making those things come true. Understanding that sometimes the goal that you achieve may not look like what you thought it would look like when you first got started, but you will achieve your goals if you go through this process. And so that's what I want to spend today talking about is my process for setting goals and how you can set SMART goals for 2018. I don't know what kind of goals you have as you're listening, whether those are entrepreneurial goals, whether those are personal goals, family goals, spiritual goals, whatever it is. Now, around October of 2017 is when you really should be planning out your future for 2018. Because in order to achieve the goals that you set for yourself, you've got to put a lot of stuff in play ahead of getting started. Setting the goal is just step one. The rest of it you got to put in play before you get started to make sure you're going to be successful. So I want to talk about a little bit of that tonight, and then we're going to get out of here. All right. So the first thing about setting goals is that you have to understand what a SMART goal is, and you have to always set SMART goals. All right. So when we talk about SMART goals, that SMART is an acronym, and that acronym SMART, it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Or it's specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Either one of those interpretations works for the types of goals that you have to set. But I'll go down each one of those. So first of all, your goal needs to be specific. If you say, my goal for 2018 is to lose weight, that's not specific enough, right? My goal for 2018 is to lose 15 pounds. That is specific, right? That tells me exactly what it is that I need to do to accomplish that goal in order for me to say, I achieved success. The other side of that is it meets the M in SMART, measurable. I want to lose weight isn't really measurable, but I want to lose 15 pounds is definitely measurable. I start off and I know exactly what weight I was when I first started. And then as I'm losing weight, I'm able to weigh myself. I'm able to measure the change in the size of my waist. There's all kinds of things you can measure on a goal like that. And so it is specific and it is measurable. The next one is attainable, right? If you say in 2018, I want to lose 150 pounds, that's probably not attainable. If it is attainable, it's probably not going to happen naturally, right? That's the kind of thing that you would probably only be able to do if you had surgery or you did something like that, right? But you want to set goals that are actually attainable by you as a human being. If your goal is not attainable, then it's just a wish or it's a dream. And so the key thing with your goal is that it's got to be something that you humanly, physically can do. It shouldn't be too easy. It should be a challenge, but it should be something that you can, if you put in the work, that you can reach out and make happen. The next thing is relevant, right? Relevant. When it comes to creating a goal that is relevant, you have to look at your life as a whole, right? You can make a goal, you can set a goal to accomplish something, but if that goal that you're setting to accomplish doesn't actually further your life, if it's not actually aligned with the path that you want to go on as a person in your life's journey, then it's not really relevant. And then setting that goal is really an offshoot. It takes you off of your path away from success, overall success in your life. And so then you have to go back and think, do I really want to set this goal? Is this really helping me to be the person that I want to be, to get closer to the things that I want to accomplish in life? If not, if it's not relevant, then you shouldn't be setting the goal to begin with. An example of that, right? Example of that. This is just off the top of my head, but let's just say that your goal is to, you want to be a preacher. Your life's goal, right? You want to be a preacher. And then at the same time, your short-term goal, the goal you set for 2018 is I want to save up money and I want to go to Vegas for, 2 weeks in 2018. And I just want to live it up and live out everything that Sin City has to offer in the city of sin. But that doesn't really tie in with your whole, I want to be a preacher lifetime goal, right? So you got to look and say, is that really relevant? Like, is that something that I should be making a goal to achieve this next year? Or should I be putting my time, my money, and my energy towards a different goal that actually feeds towards my longer term goal? Right. So that, just off the top of my head, that was just one relevant example. And then the last one is always time bound. If your goal does not have a time limit on it, then you will never, ever achieve it. You will never get to the end because you'll never have a reason to put effort towards it, right? If you just say, man, I want to lose weight, there's no reason for you to put effort towards making that happen now. But I want to lose 15 pounds by June. Now, every single day that gets you closer to June is another day you don't have left before that goal has to be accomplished. And that sense of urgency starts to take over, and it drives the decisions that you make. So long as there's not a time limit on it, there's nothing to drive your decision making, right? In one direction or the other. So your goals have to be time bound. So that takes you all the way through SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Now, the great thing about SMART goals, at least for me, as a person who does training, as a person who's an instructional designer, when you look at the way that training is built and the way the educational stuff is built, we build learning objectives into things. And our learning objectives, just by the way that they have to be written, they are SMART, right? You learn to set SMART goals when you learn to write learning objectives. Because, if I set a learning objective that says, my students will be able to multiply by the 1 through 10 times tables without assistance with fewer than 3 errors, right? And that's just an example, right? That is a learning objective. It's very specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, or relevant. And then here, it's not so much time bound as it is like quality bound or standard bound. You can't make more than 3 errors. So that tells me what the limitations are, right? So in this case, it's a limitation of standard as opposed to time. But that's how people write learning objectives, because that way a student goes in and knows exactly what they have to achieve in order to be successful. So that thing is made both for the student and the teacher. The teacher knows exactly what the standard is and how to grade based on that, and the student knows exactly what they need to do in order to achieve success. Setting goals is the exact same thing with SMART. If you write your goals in that kind of standard way of, I will achieve X by Y time frame within whatever parameters, you're setting really good SMART goals. So setting the goal, like I said before, that is step one. After you set the goal, the very next thing that you got to do is you have to identify the resources that you're going to need to achieve your goal or multiple goals. So when I say that, identifying the resources you need to achieve those goals, let's use my 2016 examples, right? I had a certification that I wanted to accomplish. So I had to go out and I had to research that certification, the CPLP certification, and find out, well, what is required in order for me to get that certification? Well, it requires that I pass 2 tests, right? Had to pass 1 test in order to be approved to go take the second test. Had to pass the second test to get certified. Okay, sweet. Well, when do they give the test out? Great question, Gerald. They only give the test out 2 times a year. So you can either take the first test very early in the year and the second test a few months later, or you take the first test late in the year and the second test a few months later. But it's only twice a year that you actually have the window to take these tests, either in the first half or the second half. Okay, sweet. So that tells me that I'm going to need to either study a lot really, really quick to get into this first half, or I'm going to have to plan out doing it in the second half, which means that if I want to get it done by the end of the year, I'm going to have to make sure that I pass. Great. I know that. And I'm going to look, okay, well, what resources am I going to need to study for this test? So then it goes and I look up all of the studying groups that are out there and the study materials that are out there and the cost for all these training materials that I would have to get in order to study for these tests. And I'm looking at the cost of them. I'm looking at the times that they're available. I'm looking at all of these different details, right? Because in order for me to achieve my goal, I got to know what resources am I going to need? How much is it going to cost me? Do I need to save up to do this? How long will it take me to save up for that, right? And then once I get these resources, how long will I have to study? How often will I need to study? All of those questions you should be asking yourself and answering long before day one of Ready, Set, Go even comes. Because if you don't know what resources you're going to need in order to accomplish your goal, then as soon as you actually start working and the resources hit you in the face, it becomes really easy to just quit and say, oh, I didn't know it was going to take all that. Well, I guess I'll have to do it next year. No, set yourself up for success. Identify ahead of time what resources you need to have access to in order for you to be successful, to achieve your goal. All right. The next piece that I would say to that is once you've identified the resources you need, if you need assistance from other people in order to get access to those resources, this is when you need to start communicating with them. All right. So the next thing is you want to communicate your goals to other people. Now, depending on who you are and depending on how comfortable you are with people, you're either going to want to communicate those goals to a few people that you would consider trusted advisors, people that, you can call them your best friend, you can call your parents or your kids or whoever it is, but somebody that you can talk to, you can be honest with them about what you want to achieve, and they're going to have your best interests at heart. They're going to give you truthful counsel and help you go in the right direction. That group of people may be very small for you. It may be larger for you. Right? So you can either communicate those goals to trusted advisors. You can communicate it to, a larger circle, or if you're confident, you can communicate yours to the public. What I did with my goals, I actually started off 2016 and I laid out all my goals and I threw them out on Facebook, said, hey, these are the things that I want to accomplish this year. Boom, boom, boom. And then as the year went on, every time I accomplished a goal, I would post that out on Facebook, right? I'd post a picture of it. I'd post whatever it was, because that was my way of keeping accountable to people who I had already said, this is what I'm going to do. Without that accountability, it's so easy to quit. We quit on ourselves so quickly as people. But if you communicate to other people, it's a lot of times harder to quit, because now you're quitting on them, right? It's really easy to quit on myself when I haven't told anybody else what I'm going to do for me. But if I've told other people this is what I'm going to do, and then I quit on it, it's more of a failure. And that happens for a lot of us. So communicate your goals to trusted advisors, to your circle, or to the public. And in that, you can also put out those calls to action. Hey, can anybody help me out with this resource? Does anybody know how to get access to that resource? Hey, for these two things that I want to do, I'm going to need a connection with this person or that person. Does anybody out there know these people? You can actually start making connections that can help you achieve your goals if you're willing to be open and honest with people about what you want to achieve. So I know that that particular idea is different for different people. I see a lot of people say, move in silence. Don't tell people what you got going on. They're just going to hate on you, this, that, and the other. And that there's a certain level of that could happen out in the world, right? But the way I look at it is, if you have people around you who, when you say, I'm going to do this good thing in my life, the only thing that they want to come back to is to try to dissuade you from that, or to talk bad about you for that, or to somehow try to tear you down, like that's a blessing to identify those people, because, it's not very hard at all to just, click that block button on your social media, or just not pick up the phone, or, delete somebody's number from your phone. If those are the people that are around you, when you try to do positive things for yourself, it's really easy to get those people out of your life and to start identifying the positive folks and surrounding yourself with the positive people who are going to lift you up, who are going to help you push yourself forward. And so I personally don't see anything bad coming from being public about goals, because at the very least, it helps you identify who's really in your corner and who you need to completely just kind of push out of your life. Because if you're going to be a person who achieves goals regularly, you can't be a person who is dragged down by negativity. You can't be pushing negativity on other people, and you can't allow other people who have negative attitudes to play a huge part in your life. So being public is a way to identify those people and start kind of shifting your circle and pushing out the riffraff and pulling in more people who are going to help you achieve and who you can help achieve. And that's the next piece. I kind of hit on it already, but once you get into the process of achieving your goals, you've set the SMART goal, you've identified the resources, you've started to actually capture and use those resources. The next thing that you have to do is you have to get started. You have to take action. Once you've taken action to start moving towards your goal, you just don't stop. You may change course. You may experience setbacks. Something may not go the way that you want it to go. It may not look the way that you want it to look, but you just don't stop. You start and then you keep going. And what you're going to find as you're doing that, keep in mind, this isn't some resolution. This is something that you have identified, you've organized, you've captured the resources, and you're moving forward on it. You are going to see doors start opening for you for achieving your goal. You're going to see people start gravitating towards you, wondering what it is that's helping you be so successful, because they want to experience that success in their life. And what you've got to do is that you have got to also teach and help and mentor those people. That's the last part of achieving your goals. When you start moving forward and when you start seeing positive things happen, other people will too. And when people reach out to you for help, you help them. You be a mentor to them. You show them whatever it is that you know that's helping you be successful, and you give it away. Not asking for anything in return. You just give it away, whether it's your time, whether it's your energy, whether it's your advice. When people start seeing you succeed and they come and they want your support for them, you just give it to them. Just give everything that you have into those people who want that from you. I say that because the reaction within you is going to be twofold. The first thing that's going to happen when people start asking you questions and you start answering their questions as honestly as you possibly can, it's going to force you to reflect on your processes. It's going to force you to relearn the things that you've already learned to start moving towards your goals and being successful. And then it's going to force you to actually be able to articulate those things to another person so they can use them. And that is one of the best ways of learning, right? When you have to teach somebody else, then your processes that you've learned become even more ingrained in you. It forces you to be even more successful at what you're doing, because now you've got to not only be able to do it, but explain it to somebody in a way that's going to help them do it. The other thing that's going to happen for you when you start mentoring other people is that's another piece of motivation, because now not only is it you've communicated your goals to the public or to other people, and so you're held accountable to them for that. But when people start looking up to you and they start saying, how are you doing what it is that you do? It makes it almost impossible for you to quit. Because not only are people looking at you and saying, you told me you were going to do this, now go do it. But people are looking up to you and saying, I want to get where you are. Show me how to get there. And so you continue to climb that ladder to success. You're pulling people up that ladder with you. And you know that you can't stop, because if you stop, the people behind you are going to be let down on their journey. And so it is a cycle of positivity that you start to build when you go and you start mentoring other people to help them achieve success. It's all positive. And in doing that, the last piece is you can't be afraid to look for mentors. You can't be afraid to find people who are further along on their journey than you are, and forge connections with them and build relationships with them, and seek their counsel and their advice in helping you to achieve what they've achieved. Because none of us achieve goals on our own. It just can't happen. We have to have doors opened up for us, because we don't have the keys to everything, right? But people around us do. It's another part of being public about it. Sometimes when you communicate your goals publicly, the right person with the right access is going to be somewhere in your vicinity, and they're going to see your passion, and they're going to see your drive, and they're going to know they've got exactly what it is that you need that can help you get there. And they're going to help, and they're going to start opening doors for you, and they'll start teaching you. And so you don't want to just take that to chance. If there are people in your life that you know are on a path, on a direction that you want to go, reach out to those folks and ask for them to mentor you, to help you achieve the success that you want in your life. Now, I know this doesn't directly deal with buying Black or supporting Black-owned businesses, but I feel like it also does, because one of the big problems that I've heard and that I've seen in our community is that people don't think that entrepreneurship or owning a business is something that we can achieve. It's like it's some kind of a mystical thing that only a few people have cracked that nut. But it's not safe, and it's volatile, and it's risky, and it's really, really expensive. And, it's just safer to go get a job, because why would I risk everything in my life for something that is most likely going to fail, right? Because most times you start a business, the first time out, it's going to fail, right? But how far along do you get before it fails? And what have you learned before it fails? And who did you connect with during that first failure that's going to help your next one be a success? Like it's all a process. Building businesses is a process. So I think a huge part of sparking more entrepreneurship in the Black community, building more Black-owned businesses that we can support internally, that we can start building up our wealth and our capital in the community, is learning how to get out of the reactive mentality that most Americans have. This reactive mentality of, well, I need to eat, so I got to get money. I got to get money, and the quickest way for me to get money is to get a job. So I got to go out and find a job so I can work for somebody else so I can get money so that I can eat. And that's all just reactive to a base need of I need to eat. That's the natural mentality that we as Americans tend to be in. It's just the way that we're taught growing up. But if we can get into a proactive mentality, and that proactive mentality is one in which we don't think about the things that we need. We're not constantly spending our time and our energy looking at the world and saying, how do I get what I need? We start looking at the world and saying, what do people need? When we start looking around us and saying, what problem does somebody else have that I can help solve? That's a proactive mentality, right? That proactive look at what in this world is not being met. What need isn't being met or isn't being met as well as it could be? Who out here is missing something in their life that I might have the answer to be able to provide a solution for them? When we start looking at our world through those eyes, it's a whole new light. Because once we start to look for problems to solve, we tend to find out there's a lot of unsolved problems out there. And what is a business other than something to solve an unsolved problem? That's it. So when we start looking at our world proactively and saying, who has a need that I can create a solution for? And then we say, okay, I see the need. I see that I've got the solution. How do I go about building that solution? That becomes a goal. And then you go through this whole process. You set up the SMART goal. You look and you identify what all resources you will need to set up this business opportunity, to create this solution for the market. You identify what people you need to have around you who have access to those resources or who can help you get access to those resources. You start to mentor people. You start to identify people to mentor you, and you start working, taking action. And all along that path, you're reaching out to people to help you achieve that goal of creating the solution for the market, and you're teaching people what you've learned along the way. It doesn't matter how much you learned, doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. If you're doing it right, if you're going out and you're working towards achieving your goal every single day, you're going to be learning stuff that somebody near you hasn't learned yet. And no matter whether you are a multimillionaire or just somebody who is starting off in their business, if you are working towards it, if you are putting in that work, you know something that other people need to know, and that they will be happy to learn from you because it gets them one step closer to their goal. But it all starts with just changing that mentality, going from being a reactive, I need to meet my needs, so what actions do I have to take to make my stomach stop growling and to get my clothes on my back and to make sure I got a roof over my head. We stop just thinking reactive about that because those things will never go away. But if we start looking proactively at the problems that are around us and the people who have those problems and how we might be able to create those solutions, that is where business ideas come from. Figuring out how to monetize a business idea, that's a whole different beast, right? We get there eventually. Sometimes the money is the thing at the front. Sometimes it's just down the line. But first thing is being proactive and looking at what problem can I solve. And so I'll close it out by going back and looking at that through the lens of, again, this project. The podcast that I'm running right now, Buy Black, what problem needs to be solved? Well, we have a problem of Black-owned businesses not staying in business and being successful. Okay? What are some of the major reasons for that? One is that we don't have as much access to capital as other businesses started by people in other races. Okay, great. Because we don't have access to capital, we also a lot of times don't have access to the ability to market to a larger audience, to advertise. Advertising is expensive. Marketing is expensive. What else? Well, there's a negative stigma that comes across with being a Black-owned business. If people know that you're a Black-owned business, then a lot of times folks in different demographics in the white community or other communities will look and say, oh, that's a Black-owned business, which means that it's only Black people who are supposed to buy there. Their stuff's not for me. And then on the other side to that, in our community, we'll have these negative connotations or stereotypes or beliefs that if you do business with a Black-owned business, that you're going to have a bad experience. If I had a bad experience one time with one business, that means that all Black-owned businesses, I'm going to have a bad experience every time. And therefore, I don't need to waste my time working with Black-owned businesses. It stinks, but it's the stigma that's out there. And so all of these things work against our businesses being successful. And that's a problem. Now, what's the solution? That problem is way too big for one solution to happen, but what can I bring to the table as a solution? Well, I can help solve the marketing problem, right? I don't own a bank, so I can't really solve the capital problem, and I can't decide what other people believe when they hear Black-owned business or they see that a business is owned by Black people. But what I can do is I can create a platform that helps with marketing, right? And so the podcast here is born. Now, it's small right now, right? The audience, you guys who are listening, one, I really appreciate you. Each episode, we're getting anywhere from 200 to 500 people who are downloading at this point. Now, I understand from looking at statistics and reading other blogs about podcasts, the average podcast that's out there, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of them. The average podcast out there gets about 200 downloads per episode. So by and large, 2 months, 3 months into this thing, we are ahead of the game when it comes to building an audience. And I thank you guys for that 100%. But looking at 200 to 500 downloads per episode, 3 months in, we continue to talk to our communities about this podcast. If we continue to connect with each other, and you guys are sending me feedback on people that I need to interview and businesses that you want to have featured on the show, and we continue to talk to other folks about this show and build up that audience, over the course of 6 months, a year, 2 years, this audience can be, thousands, tens of thousands of people listening every single week. And I can still provide that access for free. If a Black-owned business can get in front of 10,000 potential customers for free for 30 minutes, an hour and a half, that's a big marketing problem solved. And over time, that audience just keeps getting bigger because it's a podcast. So I'm looking at, how do I solve a problem that Black-owned businesses have for marketing? I create a platform, I offer it for free, and I put in the work to build up an audience that is large enough that it can actually support those Black-owned businesses, and that people out in the audience will listen and be able to go and actually find their products, find their services, and buy from them intentionally. That's how I solve a problem. How do I turn it into a business that makes money? That's down the line. It's definitely something that I'll come around to at some point, but that's down the line, because right now, the only thing that matters is I've got the ability to self-fund this platform, and you guys have the ability to make it huge so that the folks who we have featured on this show can actually start getting a benefit from it. And it doesn't cost anybody anything except me, and I'm good with that. I've got 3 jobs for a reason. We're good over here. So that is my solution to a problem. And even in that, that's one problem that I'm wanting to solve. But in everything else, I look at the world around me and I say, who else has a problem? And how can I solve it? Right? That's where business ideas come from. And that needs to become a natural way of thinking in the Black community. Who has a problem? How can I solve it? What skills do I have? What education do I have? What connections do I have that I can help solve this problem? So with that, I've been running my mouth here for quite a while, almost an hour now. And so I'm going to close it up with that. I'm going to close up with that challenge. I want you, if you're listening to this show and you don't already naturally think this way, or even if you do, I want you to make a concerted effort on purpose over the next week to look at everything in the world directly around you and say, what problem exists? Who around me has a problem? What is that problem? And how can I solve that problem? And then once you've identified that, who's got a problem, what the problem is, how you can solve it, take a hack at these SMART goals and the process I just laid out and see if you can't come up with a business idea, right? See if you can't come up with a business idea. And if you do that, talk to me about it, all right? I want to hear from you about it. Reach out to me, gjones@buyblackpodcast.com. It's gjones@buyblackpodcast.com. Hit me up. Tell me what you came up with. You don't have to tell me about your business idea in specific if you want to be covetous about it or anything like that. I know we still have hangups about people stealing our ideas. which again, for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because the more that we hold on to our ideas, the harder it is for us to make them actually come to fruition. But I'm still very curious and interested. If you go out, you look at the world and you see it through the eyes of somebody who's trying to solve other people's problems proactively, and you come up with a nice business idea using that tool I just laid out with you guys, hit me up. I'd really like to hear from you. And we can also have a conversation about next steps, how you can get it started, how you can turn it into something real, because I want to see more successful Black-owned businesses out here in the market. And then I want to see us proliferating. I want to see us going and teaching other people how to follow those steps and get businesses started, and then connect with other people and make them successful. That's what this whole thing is about. So, hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for your time on this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whenever you're downloading this episode. Thank you for being part of this community. As I said earlier, I really want to see this thing grow. I want to see this audience get huge, mainly because I can't imagine how awesome it's going to be when at some point in the future we have this massive audience for Buy Black Podcast, and I can still reach out to businesses, or businesses can reach out to me, and I can have them featured on this show, and it won't cost them anything. I can have them featured in this website that you all will be coming to, and it won't cost them anything. And it's literally just creating a cost-free advertising and marketing mechanism for Black-owned businesses, where they get to be in front of an audience exclusively for 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, just to talk about their business with people who really want to hear from them and who want to spend their money and support them. Like, I have that vision in my head of what this thing is going to be, and you guys are going to make it that. So continue to tell other people about the show. Continue to drive people to connect with me if they have their own business that they want to promote. I have it. I see it in my head. I see this future, and I can't wait for it to happen, but I know it's one step at a time. So I'll keep working towards this goal as I continue to set more and more and further goals down the line. And you guys also do the same. Get ready for your 2018 right now. Start setting some goals. Take that challenge that I just laid out, and then we will hear from you over the course of this next week or two, I hope. And then I will talk to you guys coming up this next Monday. You guys have a great week. Thanks again so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you for being part of the Buy Black podcast community. If you're enjoying the show, I'd appreciate reading your 5-star review in iTunes. Join us next time for another empowering episode.